So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on whatever time you are watching this video. So, for our last discussion, for our previous discussions, we have discussed the difference between ethics and morality, how these two are often mistaken to be the same, however, they are different, but at the same time, they always are intersecting with one another in the daily lives of individuals. After that, we had a very short discussion on the different focuses of ethics as a discipline in order for us to categorize the different types of theories later on. Now, let us look into morality in retrospect. So when we speak of retrospect, this is an attempt to understand this in a bird's eye view, okay, in an overall perspective on morality. Okay, so morality speaks of a system of behavior in regards to standards of right or wrong behavior. The word carries the concepts of, first and foremost, moral standards. Okay, moral standards with regard to behavior. In other words, what your standards are is how you behave. Okay, kung unsay standard nimo mao ang imong batasan, unsay ginabuhat nimo. Okay, moral responsibility, referring to our conscience. That is why kung sa Bisaya pa, kung natay gibuhat na mali and we know na mali, natay murag gikwanta sa atong konsensya, gi-bother ta sa atong konsensya. Okay, and third, moral identity, or one who is capable of right or wrong action. Okay, so without further ado, let's look into these three different concepts within the word morality. Okay, so first and foremost, morality and behavior. Morality describes the principles that govern our behavior. Without these principles in place, societies cannot survive for long. In today's world, morality is frequently thought of as belonging to a particular religious point of view, but by definition, we see that this is not the case. Everyone adheres to a moral doctrine of some kind. Right. So when we speak of morality, okay, sometimes we often think of our religious leaders. Okay. However, by definition, every one of us has our own set of principles. Every one of us has a behavior that is unique to his or herself, right? If you consider a lot of things, and if you consider the fact that everyone is unique in his or her own right, then you will observe that every individual has a certain kind of behavior that they show, right? Like, if you have a classmate who annoys you, then that's their behavior. If you have a classmate that is very studious, then that is their behavior. If you have a classmate that is very active in other things, then that's their behavior, right? So we have to understand that behavior is, kung sa Bisaya pa, weather. Kung kinsay kastorya nimo, lahi na siya batasan. Bisaya pod, unsay batasan nato sa mga tao na di nato kaila, mao pod na ang batasan sa lain na tao, di ba? If you are with a stranger, then you behave differently. But if you're with your friends, then likewise you behave differently. How much more if you are in front of your parents, right? Your behavior is different. Okay? So our morality dictates to us, or our moral standards dictate to us how we should behave in certain situations. Okay? Like if you go to church or if you go to the mosque, you know that you should behave there, simply because that is a place of, or that is a house of prayer. If you are with your friends, then your behavior is different, and whatever standards you follow, then you more often than not follow the standards of the group, right? So everyone adheres to a moral doctrine of some kind. You know that if you have a friend, then you will not betray that friend. You know that if you have responsibilities to your parents, then you will do what you have to do in order to support and help your parents, because likewise your parents are doing everything in their power to support you in whatever studies you have. Okay? Next step, morality and conscience. Okay? Morality impacts our everyday decisions, and those choices are directed by our conscience. Again, we must decide for ourselves where the conscience originates. Many people hold to the idea that the conscience is a matter of our hearts. The concept of right, wrong, and fairness are programmed in each of us, right? Okay, so when you think of it, when we say conscience, sometimes we say especially in the religious community, we say ang konsensya kay ang Holy Spirit, di ba? In some cases, no, in some cases, when we say conscience, this is usually the thing, or this is usually the reality that bothers us when we do something wrong, and it also gives us peace when we do something right, di ba? Kung bisayon pa usay, kung kabalo ka na mali ang gibuhat, or pag nakaigibuhat na sa kabutang, then nakapasakit kay tao, then ang term sa mga Bisaya kay makonsensya ka. Makonsensya ka kay mali ibuhat. Okay? So, that's basically the concept we're trying to look into now. Morality and conscience. So, ang konsensya nato, mauni siya ang excuse me, nagpaka-drive sa tuwa kung si ang ibuhaton sa kada adlaw nato na binuhatan, di ba? So when we try to do good and we fail to do good, then our conscience hurts us. Our conscience gives us the concept na we messed up, di ba? Whereas if we do something good for someone else, then especially if we do something good for ourselves, then we have the concept na sakto ang gibuhat because I feel good, di ba? So basically kung unsay the term here is program, no? So it doesn't necessarily mean no na it was placed there by someone else. Kay at the end of the day, even if no one teaches you to be good, you will know what it means not to want to be hurt, and because ikaw mismo you don't want to be hurt, then you wouldn't want to hurt others. Am I right? Okay. So that is how basically the conscience works in relation to morality. Okay, so since it is programmed in each of us, we have an understanding natay konsepto, unsay sakto, unsay mali, unsay fair, unsay unfair, unsay husto, unsay injustice. Okay? Like, for example, gusto ka mag-module, pero kusog man di ay mong net. Example na kung maigo. Anyway, so, that's basically it, no? Conscience in relation to morality. Okay, so first we had morality and behavior. Next we have morality and conscience. Now we have what they call, it's not here. So we go back first a bit to the third part now. Moral identity. So we have to remember as well that how we are able to judge an individual's actions to be right or wrong is dependent on the moral identity of the person. And the moral identity is dependent as well as on the first and second concepts. Okay. So again, moral standards deals more on the behavior. Okay. Moral responsibility refers to your conscience. Okay. I would just like to open a certain topic. No, not open a certain topic, pero to recall the thought experiment we had on Friday, I think. Thursday and Friday, because these are two different schedules, diba? So basically, the question was, why is rape wrong? Okay, why is rape wrong? So there were some good answers. There were some answers that have much to be desired, and kanang mahalata bitaw nimo na mo answer lang ka para for the sake lang mo attendance. Okay, so pasensya guys, no, I will not sugarcoat anything with you, prangkahin lang ta dire. Okay, this is an ethics class. We're supposed to speak the truth. Okay, and with someone who has a degree in philosophy, I will not care if you're offended. Okay, prangkahin lang. So here's the thing. When you answer a question, you don't answer things by saying things like, I mean, di na nang ako ipakita ang answers, no, kay makita man gud ang nawong sa tao. You look, one of the answers was rape is wrong because it's wrong. You're not answering the question. Okay? Or rape is wrong because it will lead to the death penalty. Diba? I mean, there is no death penalty in the Philippines. Okay? Things like that. So, kung mutubag ka, kung mangita ko tubag sa mga pangutana that have moral weight, okay, mga naa siya'y burden bitaw, na siya moral burden. When we say moral burden, murag gipakita siya kung unsay moralidad nimo, di ba? If I ask the question, why is rape wrong? Then imong tubag is rape is okay. Then it tells something about your moral identity. Okay? So if you think rape is good or rape is okay, then your moral identity means that you are capable of doing something wrong. Okay? That's what we're trying to understand now, and that is what led to those questions. That is what those questions led to the topic we have now: morality, moral identity, moral standards, moral responsibility. Now, one of the best answers I saw there was rape is wrong because it takes away the freedom of the individual to choose or to consent. Okay, dili man nga na yung tubag, no, pero that's basically the point lang. And this is not just one person, no? There's like 2 or 3 people in the five ethics classes I have that answered this way. Okay, bahalag dili ka maayo mag-English, ipakita sa kuha kung unsay standard nimo kanang tinuod, then bahalag online ta, we will have a very fruitful discussion. Okay, so that was the idea, no, sa giingon aning very few people. Rape is wrong because it takes away the freedom of the person to consent to the sexual act. Okay? Di na lang ako bisayon kay murag medyo ngilngig. hindi siya ngilngig, normal man siya, no, pero it sounds a bit vulgar. But anyway. So sakto. Rape is basically taking away another person's freedom to consent to your provocation or to your desire for sex. Okay? So, ayun. So, I mean, you don't have to overthink it, no? Ngano mali ang rape? Kay, kuha nimo ang freedom sa tao na mo konsente na ikaw yung partner sa sexual act. Okay? So, ano ba? Of course na, I mean, this is the standard I follow. Okay? If you answer that way, very good. If you don't answer that way, you can improve. Okay? You can improve. Dili sa ingon na bati imong answer. Ang point lang is, you can still improve the way you answer. Okay? So, di lang good mawat ang pag-asa, ana lang. Okay. Very good. So, what is the behavior? The behavior was rape. Okay? Forcing someone to have sex with you. Okay? What is the conscience of the person who committed rape? Okay? Ang iyang konsensya does not bother him or her. Okay? Ang konsensya sa usa ka rapist, there are times, labi na kung sex-crazed ang tao, okay? There are times that the sense of moral responsibility is that ang iyang gusto ra i-satisfy is ang iyang kalipay. Okay? So, sa iyang konsensya, wala siya labot unsay feeling sa iyang biktima. Okay? So, it is with that we can judge the moral identity of the rapist. Okay? That is why mali ang rape simply because the person is capable of committing to a wrong action. Okay? So, I hope you follow mo, ha? I hope it makes sense. Okay? Again, first and foremost, when you answer, it shows me whether or not unsa ka klase nga moralidad imong gina kasing-kasing sa imo. Okay? So, answers like rape is wrong because it's wrong, sorry na lang, pero it shows a kind of morality. It's siguro, no, that's what you really believe. Pero at the end of the day, there will be a time when you will have to defend what you believe. Diba? Kung dili ka makadepensa sa tarong sa iyong ginatuuhan, kasi mo tuon mo. Diba? Okay. So basically, it is in the actions of a certain person that we can judge whether or not the action is right or wrong. Maka-judge ta. Okay, so don't be afraid of the word judge. Kay kada adlaw taga-judge. You judge whether or not mo klase ka, mo eskwela ka, mo judge ka whether or not buhaton nimo ang module, mo judge ka whether or not mo answer kung tarong or dili, mo judge ko kung respeto ko na ako akong isig ka classmate, di ba? So, judgment is not necessarily bad. Okay? Judgment is not necessarily bad. Dili buot pasabot ka judge ka, bati na siya. Okay? Judgment, you make judgments every day. Okay? So, with that, we go into the concept that we now look into. Okay? So remember that if we are looking into moral standards, we also have to understand that there are what we call non-moral standards. So we go first to understanding that there is a difference between moral standards and non-moral standards. Okay? So this is why the word judgment is very important, because wala man tay choice kung di mo judge. Okay? Dili ka makaikyas na maka-judge ka sa tao. Ang lain lang is kung i-condenar or i-condemn nimo ang tao. Okay? Base sa judgment nimo, mali ang gibuhat, but wala tay right mo condemn. Dira ta maglahi. Okay? So, moral standards versus non-moral standards. So, it is important to note that different societies have different moral beliefs, and that our beliefs are deeply influenced by our own culture and context. For this reason, some values do have moral implications, while others don't. Okay, so before we continue, please, I want you to read this. I invite you to read this again by yourself. Okay, read this by yourself while I'm talking. I-pause ni mo if you want. Read it again, read it twice, read it thrice. Okay, kay this is important. Okay, whether it's important for this class, it's also important when you are outside the class. Why? Again, you cannot help but judge. Okay, you cannot help but judge. Dili nimo malikayan na maka-judge ka. Okay? So, again, it is important to note that different societies have different moral beliefs, and that our beliefs are deeply influenced by our own culture and context. For this reason, some values do have moral implications, while others don't. So what does this mean? We look into it by understanding moral standards and the difference between non-moral standards. Okay. First and foremost, moral standards. Okay, moral standards are norms that individuals or groups have about the kinds of actions believed to be morally right or wrong, as well as the values placed on what we believe to be morally good or morally bad. Okay. Again, moral standards are norms that individuals or groups have about the kinds of actions believed to be morally right or morally wrong, as well as the values placed on what we believe to be morally good and morally bad. Okay, so what does this mean, first and foremost? So of course, naman jud tay mga beliefs. We have beliefs, and we believe that our beliefs are morally good. In other words, mo ni mga butang na maayo kay wala tay giapakan na lain tao. Okay? Or natay ginasunod ng mga butang na maayo, and therefore bahala kung sa ingon sa lain tao, motuod ta nat maayo, di ba? As well as mga beliefs or mga binuhatan, kay mga values na makaingon jud ta na kung sundon nila to, I can be considered a morally good person. Okay. Okay? So, next, moral standards normally promote the good. That is the welfare and well-being of humans as well as animals and the environment. Okay? Moral standards, therefore, prescribe to what humans ought to do in terms of rights and obligations. Okay, so when we say promote the good, okay, so when we say the good, in other words, the common good, unsay maayo sa tanan, unsay maayo sa kadaghanan, dili lang sa usa ka tawo. Okay? So ang mga moral standards mo ni yung mga ginahatag sa tuwa bitaw, mga ginaanad sa tuwa sa atong ginikanan, sa atong mga religious leaders, sa atong gobyerno, sa atong society. So these are things that supposedly promote the good or the common well-being of everyone. So it looks into the welfare of sa imong isig ka tao, sa mga hayop, sa imong environment, kung aha ka puyo, kung aha ka stay, things like that. Okay? So, yeah. So, you look into unsay maayo para sa lain. Dili lang sa imong kaugalingon. Okay? Kung unsay maayo sa akuha, dapat maayo po sa lain tao. Okay? So, kung maayo para sa akuha na dili ko manghilabot og lain tao, then dapat po dili ko manghilabot og lain tao. Okay? So, ayun. Now, we go and look into the very first thought experiment we had. Diba? So if we had an thought experiment last time regarding rape, the other one was more or less about a father. Diba? So ang papa, diba, if you remember that, so if you're still watching this, I hope you're still watching this. Okay? So, ang scenario was, what if na yung usa ka papa who lives in a country na impoverished? When we say impoverished, grabe ka pobre. Okay? Pobre kay sa tanan to the point na walay welfare, walay bantay bata, walay DSWD, no? Yan na bitaw, walay social welfare. There are no social workers to provide aid, walay klaro ang gobyerno na makahatag og ayuda. So the father, losing his job, ended up thinking na wala may lain opportunity, 'di ba? Impoverished gani ang nation, 'di ba? Pobre kaayo. So he decided instead to sell drugs. Okay? So ang papa nahimog drug pusher. Why? Kay wala na siya ma-provide sa iyang family. Okay. So, as he went on, syempre, mahal mo din ang drugs, whether you like it or not. It's, in terms of business, it's a good business, pero it leads to bad things, di ba? But, consider this, what could he do? Okay, what could he do? Let's look into let's mention the answers sa mga students, sa inyong mga classmates later on. Okay, while he was pushing his goods, nakitaan siya sa police, of course. Gikuhan siya. Gitry siya og arrest. Oh yes, okay. But the father, the man, wala siya posilo, wala siya anything. Hidagan na lang siya. Kaya syempre, kung gahuna-una siya, kung madakpan siya, wala na siya i-provide sa family. Alright. That's the scenario. What happened next? Hidagan siya, ang mga police, may disiplina, kipusil nila ang papa. So, the man is dead. Now, consider this. Sakto ba, justified ba ang gibuhat sa papa? Kaduha, justified ba ang gibuhat sa police? So, the answers varied, no? And remember, there are 5 sections, and this is basically a summary of what everyone said. Okay? So, naiuban at taas ang answers, naiuban short, pero simple, pero enough. So, let's look at the answers na pwede unta ma-improve. Okay? So, let's not say bad answers, no? I mean, let's use the word na lang na mga answers na pwede ma-improve. Okay. One of the answers was dili justified. Okay, understandable. Pero wala niya i-consider ang thought na naa siya pamilya. Okay. So one of the answers again was okay, dili justified. Yes, okay. Dili justified because there are other ways of making money. There are other it's easy to find a job according to this one person. It's easy to find a job. Okay, so again, i-consider balik ang scenario. Impoverished ang nation. In other words, pobre tanan. Except sa dato. Okay? Pobre tanan, kay wala pa klaro ang kuan sa gobyerno. Okay? So again, we are not talking about any particular country. This is just a general thought. Okay? Dali na daw mangitag trabaho. Impoverished gani ang nation. Okay? When you consider it, yes, mali yapon. Diba? And that's basically the answer of the majority. Dali daw mangitag trabaho. Really? Sure? Sure? Dali daw mangitag trabaho. Okay. If you consider it, yes, dili justified na magbaligya kag drugs. Why? Because drugs makes the situation worse. No doubt. Wala joy maayo ang ikadulot ang drugs. Morally speaking, it is still wrong. Why? Because it destroys the freedom of another human being. Ano man, kay madependent man ang tao sa drugs. Okay? Excuse me. So that is why, morally speaking, drugs will always be wrong. Okay? Mahimo siya good kay makakwarta man ka, pero it's still wrong. Okay, you are taking advantage of the plight of another human being. Okay? Madato ka, while at the same time, ang imong product na gihatag sa tao kay makadaot sa iya. So it is morally wrong all the time. But here's the thing. Yes, dili siya justifiable. But do not say na dali ra na mangitag trabaho sa usa ka lugar na pobre ang ekonomiya. Okay? Dili jud siya dali. Okay? So if you reflect sa sitwasyon nato karon, almost 60% sa mga tao na empleyado last year wala na trabaho karon. Okay, swerte na lang nang nagpabili na trabaho. Okay? So consider that ba? Consider that. Again, di ba, the last part was consider the situation. So ang situation was impoverished ang nation. Okay? Why am I repeating this? Because again, there will come a time when you have to defend what you believe, whether you like it or not, and if you cannot answer properly, ikaw gyapon ang luoy. Okay? Mura gyapon wala ka kasabot sa mga kaugaling ginatuuhan. Okay? Next. The second question, justified bang gibuhat sa police na gipatay nila ang pusher? Okay. If you consider what happened, no, gipatay nimo ang breadwinner sa family. Okay. Regardless kung pila ka anak sa papa, it will all go down to the fact na ang mama na lang mabili na mo alaga sa mga anak. Okay. So here's the second part of the answer to most of the answers. To some of the answers di kay dili man tanan. Some dili majority. Okay? Some of the answers said justified ang pagpusil sa pusher. Okay. Ngano justified kay according to them, according to this some people, dapat lang daw napatyon ang pusher. Dapat lang daw napatyon ang pusher. Okay. Remember, i-consider again ang facts. Impoverished ang nation, ang tao na walang trabaho. Wala na siya'y choice. Okay? Nga na wala siya'y choice, kay dili-dali mangitag trabaho. Okay. Mas justifiable kung i-preso na lang dun siya. Okay? So, ang morality manggod there is a wrong answer in morality. Okay? Na-adri wrong answer ang moralidad. Okay? Morally speaking, ang rape gani, mali, kana pa ka mo patay. Diba? May untag self-defense to. Diba? So the situation was, ang lalaki na pusher, nidagan lang siya. Wala siya ilain ibuhat, nidagan lang siya. Then pusil siya, gipatay siya. Kanya mo gituyo pa, according to the situation na gihatag na to. If you think of it, if you think that it's justified, unsa na lang ka imong kinaiya sa laing tao na naay mali. Diba? If you consider it, right? So, the thing is, yes, it's against the law to sell drugs. Okay? But remember, ang balaod gihimo para sa tao, dili ang tao gihimo sa balaod. Okay? It does not justify the killing of a man who was unarmed. Okay? Makaingon na ko na justified ang pagpatay niya kung gipusil niya ang mga police. But even then, even the police were trained not to kill. Diba? Unless necessary kay sa katanan. Okay? Was it necessary on the situation na gihatag? No! It was justified samot na dili. Well, dili siya justified because you don't just say na ang hajud patyon ang drug pusher. First and foremost, wala ka kaila sa tao. Diba? Ikaw gani mahadlok ka ma-judge sa lain tao, mahadlok ka i-condemn sa lain tao, then ikaw na noon mag-condemn sa lain tao na wala kaila. Yes, drugs are wrong. Pero kinsa man ta mo ingon na demonyo ang isa ka tao, diba? Okay. So again, that was a thought experiment and there were answers that were very good. Again, so yeah, one of the very good answers were first and foremost katong first consideration. Sir, dili justifiable na nag-sell siya drugs, but he could have found a better way. Even if it was hard. Wow. That was an answer that was good. He could have found a way na legal, he could have found a way that was better. Dili ka na ang iyang exact words ha. But, the thought was, Mali siya. He should have considered the fact na even though easy money ang drugs, pag madakpan siya, wala na tanan. Diba? So far, that was the best answer I saw. Mali gyapon siya, dili siya justifiable. Yes, that's right. Dili siya justifiable ang pagbaligyang drugs kay yes, maka-provide ka sa imong family, pero ang lain tao ga suffer tungod sa drugs na yung ginabaligya. Okay? Next, he could have found a better way even if it was hard. Okay. Very good. Ana ba? Next, justified ba ang pagpusil or ang pagpatay? One of the best answers again. No, because just like sama sa naay balaod na bawal ang dili ka dapat magbalik ang drugs, napud sa balaod or napud sa training sa police na dili ka dapat magpatay. Okay? Unless necessary. Okay, murag ka na ang iyang point ba? So, yeah. So, both actions were not justified. Okay? Selling drugs is never justifiable. Killing a man who is unarmed is never justifiable. Okay? Killing, labi na kung police ka. Okay? So, I hope that was understandable. If galibog ka, rewind na lang sa what was previously discussed. Okay. So, that's basically the point of moral standards, no? Okay? This is the reason why in moral standards, importante ang concept sa judgment. Okay? In judgment, maka-decide man ka kung mali or dili ang sa kabutang. It is with judgment that you can judge or you can decide that a certain action, a certain behavior should be considered to be wrong or right. Okay? Like take for example, if you go to church, then you know very well that to interrupt the sermon of the priest or the pastor. Okay? Similar thing in the mosque. If the imam is preaching, then mag-disturbo man ka, di ba? So basically, that is the concept. That is the concept of moral standards. Kini mga butang, ginabuhat nato kay kabalutan na makahatag siya kaayuhan sa kadaghanan. Right? That is moral standards. So these are the standards we follow. Okay? That is why it's called standard. Ang standard mo ni ang guide bitaw mo ni ang guide na ginasunod sa tanang tao para naatay saktong landas, di ba? Natay sakto na pamaagi kung ahata mo agi. Okay? So again, the reason why it is called a standard is because it is the highlight of what we should do. It is the main thing that we should do. It is the guide, it is the guidance, it is the basic principles na ginasunod nimo kanunay, di ba? Na gani kay standard si mong uyab, kani pa ka, di ba? So di ba, if na kay standard sa imong crush, dapat akong crush kay taas, dapat brown, dapat dato, dapat may car, di ba? Na kay standard, that is a standard still. Okay? So similar thing in moral standards, na kay ginasunod na kabalo ka na kung buhaton ni nako, dapat buhaton pud sa tanan. Okay? Kung dili ko dapat mangopya, dili pud ka dapat mangopya. Kung ako dili ko dapat mangawat, dapat ikaw pud di ka dapat mangawat. Kay mo nang standard nato na ginasunod. Di ba? Kay dili man jud nimo makonsente ang idea na pwede ka mangawat. Dili man jud nimo makonsente na pwede ka mo-cheat. Maglagot gani ka kung mag-cheat imong uyab, mo-cheat na nung ka sa exam, di ba? Alright. So those are moral standards. Okay? The next thing is what we call non-moral standards. Okay? So when we say non-moral, gawas ni siya sa moralidad. Okay? Gawas ni siya sa moralidad. So, ang moral standards basically, muna yung mga binuhatan, muna yung mga prinsipyo na ginasunod para makaingon ta kung maayo ni na binuhatan or dili ni maayo na binuhatan. Okay? In non-moral standards, okay, this refers to standards by which we judge what is good or bad and right or wrong in a non-moral way. So when we say non-moral way, we do not say that okay, we do not say that the cell phone, the person who made the cell phone is a bad human being because dili maayo ang pagkahimo sa cellphone. Okay? So likewise, if we say if nindot ni na phone, I mean nindot ang specs, barato, maka-online class ka ani, maka-negosyo ka ani, dili ka moingon ang gahimo ani kay maayo kay nga sa katanan na tao. Diba? You do not say that you do not attribute goodness to a thing. Diba sa tao naman na. But you say na kung nindot ni siya nga phone, moingon ka na ang gahimo kay maayo mo yung phone. Dili ka moingon na maayo siya na tao. Okay? Again, a person who acts the way he should act is not okay. Ang kaayuhan sa tao dili dependent kung aha siya maayo. Okay? Ang kaayuhan sa tao kung unsay batasan niya sa laing tao o sa kagalingon. Di Bisaya na to ha, kung English na to. The goodness of a person is dependent on how he acts towards himself, to other people, even maybe to animals and to his environment. However, the goodness of a person is not dependent on how good he works. Okay? So, for example, kung dili ko maayo nga maestro, dili mo moingon na daotan ko na tao, di ba? Moingon mo na dili ko maayo na maestro, di ba? Ana lang. You do not say that I am a bad person simply because I'm a bad teacher, okay? So if I do not provide you with materials for you to learn, if I do not care whether you pass or fail, if I do not care about the fact that you can learn, then you will not say I'm a bad person, you just say I'm a bad teacher, di ba? Whereas, if kung maingon ko na patyon ti ka, kung buhaton dyan na ako, then ay hara ka mo ingon na daotan ko na tao. Okay? So, balik ta. Non-moral standards. So, you look into siguro it still entails behavior, no? Pero, you look more on how a thing or a person acts toward a certain thing. Okay, sige lang. So let's look into this. Okay? Okay, sorry. So, again, so non-moral standards are basically things that we judge a certain concept or a certain action to be bad based on how the action was made. Okay? Which sounds similar to non-moral standards, but basically, no, let's just use the example earlier, diba? If kung kita mga Pinoy, if as Filipinos in general, or let's say mga Bisaya lang, hilig ta magkinamot ng kaon. Right? Mas dali, mas lami, di ba? Mas lami kung magkinamot. And that's a reality para sa tuwa. Dili ta daotan kung magkinamot ta. Tama ba? But if you go to a 5-star restaurant, okay, 5-star restaurant, okay, muna yung mga restaurant na makita ninyo ang standard sa inyong HELE, napabay HELE or TLE or home economics ba, diba? In home economics you have 3 different kinds of plate, 4 different kinds of forks, 4 different kinds of spoon, na nakay coffee cup, napakay tea cup, napakay wine glass, napakay water glass. So in 5-star restaurants kompleto na tanan, diba? Kung Bisaya ka or kung taga Iligan, Mindanao ka or unsa ba, wala kay labot. Kung mukhaon ka, kinamot ka. Kinamot or spoon and fork, sapat na na. But if you go to a 5-star restaurant, there are standards na follow. Okay? So, kung gi-serve kag sabaw, dapat ang spoon para sabaw imong gamiton. Dili ang spoon para sa meal. Diba? And dapat imong kamot, let's say for example, this is the spoon, dapat imong pinky is always should be like that. Okay? So that's a standard 5-star restaurants follow. Kung ana diya, sip din ka. Plus ang thumb ana dud ka. Diba? And these are standards. Okay? But they are non-moral standards. In other words, kung dili ka mosunod ana nga standard, dili buot pasabot na daotan ka na tao. Okay? So, if I go to a 5-star restaurant and then gakinamot ko, okay, wala ko gasunod sa standard sa lugar, it just means na dili ko maayo mo sunod. Dili buot pasabot na daotan ko. Okay? So, in summary, ang moral standards judges you as a person. Non-moral standards are standards which are followed depending on the place. Okay? Diba? Okay? So, short review. Moral standards, again, these are actions that should promote the common good of everyone. Okay? So, if ang spiritualidad nimo or your religiosity promotes the common good of everyone, it helps everyone become a better person, then that falls under moral standards. However, non-moral standards, if you go to a place that there are rules that need to be followed, for example, then basically ang concept lang dira is musunod ka sa rule pero dili pasabot tagasunod ka sa batas or sa rule, buutan or tarong ka na tao. Okay? But we will look further into this in the next video. So, if you would like to know the sources for this, and if you would like to look into it deeper, then these are the sources that might help you if you can access the net. If not, then we will find other ways. Alright? So, I hope the video was insightful. I hope, please understand, in ethics, kinahanglan mag-real talk, especially bahin sa kung unsa ka maghuna-huna. Okay, kung unsa na siya maghuna-huna mo ipagawas din sa batasan. Okay? So ethics is more than a course. It is more than a subject. Ang ethics kay mo ay ginabuhat nimo sa kada adlaw nimo na binuhatan. Okay? Bisaya na to ha. So again, ethics is how we behave, what we act towards other people, towards other beings, towards our environment, towards ourselves, how we act, how we behave in general, how we look at the world in general. Okay, that is basically morality, and it is something that is personal para sa tuwa, and ginabuhat nato kay we know, kay it is in our beliefs that if I do this, then mataktan ang lain tao, and pag mataktan sila, then we can benefit from the good that we are doing for one another. Okay? So this is Sir Angelico ending this video. See you in the next video. Stay safe, God bless, stay healthy.